terms of what we're hearing from the media, and we're very problematic for the students that are involved in these situations. How does that chain of command work? And who has the authority to make these final decisions or to reverse or amend decisions that are made?
Okay. I know that you all are probably going to be frustrated with me by the end of this because
I just don't know how it works.
Yeah, so the reality is a lot of the personnel pieces I'm not going to be able to talk about. I can tell you this though. I can tell you that.
I don't mean in these specific cases, in general.
Yeah, so I could talk to you about in generalities about things. I could talk about my years of experience. I could talk to you about just kind of decision making. I could talk about that, but I'm not going to talk about any specific personnel matters whatsoever. But the reality is this though, that the university, I've been in this role for almost 5 years. I've worked very closely with students, and I will put my name up to almost anyone on this campus and across the country is supporting students. I think my history would support that. I would never make or really encourage any decision that's going to impact students. My motivation is to support students and to help them reach their success, their goals. My focal point since I've been here in the drive, and I'm every meet that I'm in, if anyone has been in there with me, I'm advocating for staff because I think sometimes staff don't have the voice at the table, so I'm always pushing. I know Kevin McDonald is tired of me always saying, hey, what about staff, what about staff? The other piece is I'm also focused on making sure that individual students, no matter what their identity or sexuality is, that they have a voice at the table because sometimes it gets overlooked. So again, I can't address personnel issues, but I just want you to understand decisions are not made in a vacuum. There's a lot of consideration, there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of deliberation, and then you make the best decision you feel is going to be best for the university community, and that's what it's about. I think that's what everybody's here for. Everybody is here because they want to know that there's not disservice going on to our faculty, staff, and our students, and I'm committed to that as well. I'm on the same page. I'm just in a space where I don't think it's fair to the people that's involved to talk about personnel matters. I don't think any one of us would want personnel matters talked about them as well. So I'm going to again refer back to the statement and then talk about the commitment to serving our students. That's what this should be about. It should be about, I know there's questions, but the commitment should be about how are we serving our students, what's happening, how we're going to continue to support them. And again, the numbers are reflecting that we're doing it. And if there's some kinks, again, we're going to always reevaluate. We're going to always continue to work to make sure our process is better.
Can I follow up on what I asked earlier and then you go? Because I thought of a different way to phrase it. So I do agree that it is about serving our students. I absolutely agree with that. Hopefully you won't hate me about it.
It's fine.
Okay. I absolutely agree with that statement, but one thing that I believe very strongly in, and I think a lot of people in this room do, is that like the ability to criticize how things are being done in an effort to do what individuals think is best serving our students is super important.
I'm on the same
right?
page. I agree with you 110%.
And as somebody who doesn't have tenure, like I feel very strongly connected to these staff members who originally it appeared that they were let go because they spoke out of turn. Right? But that is not the statement we're left with. The statement that we're left with is that there was a violation of federal laws and policies to keep students safe. So I'm not going to ask you a specific question. I'm going to ask you a general question. So in general, if a staff member violates a federal law or policy that affects the safety of students, is it good policy to hire those people in other positions?
Again, I can't talk about personnel.
Well,
I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna wrap it up. So
this is a policy question.
That policy question, that again, that is not my decision to make. So that I have no power or ability to even address that because that has nothing to do with this at all, actually.
Would you hire people for the RSVP Center who have violated federal laws that affect the safety of students?
We're going to do a fact check. We're going to look at everything. We're going to make a decision based on what's going to be the best impact for the students. So I'm going to evaluate that. I mean, so honestly, anytime you look at something like that, that's going to be people are going to say, "Hey, let me dive into it." So that's going to be difficult without looking at the whole context. But let me go back to your other comment that you stated about the university anyone being comfortable being critical of the university in the process. I'm critical and challenge the university on a daily basis. I look at my supervisor and like, okay, I'm probably gonna get kicked out of here because I'm critical because I love this place and I want us to be great. And I'm one of the few folks, I think, that have the opportunity to work in multiple facets at this institution and can see it in a broader perspective. So I'm gonna push because I know we are great, but I also know that we have some flaws as well. So I'm gonna push, but also I'm gonna represent the university in the best light though too. So can you be critical and should you be critical? Yes. And I'm constantly critical of the space, but I love the space. And I'm going to push because I know we can be great. So I'm all on board. So we're on the same page.
Right.
With being critical.
And I would agree. I mean, I don't think anybody's impugning individual motives here. The idea, though, it is, just to clarify, it is a little mystifying that somebody would be terminated or removed from a position because of violating that federal law, and then provide or allowed to take on another position that is, you know, these individuals did not take positions, you know, making copies or flipping burgers in the student center. They took other positions that put them in a place that dealt with sensitive information. So that's just, we don't know all the details, we understand.
And to be clear, the reason we're pushing on this is not because, and this is me being a little critical, the reason I'm pushing on this is not because I don't want those people at the university, because I do. I think they should still be in the RSVP center. The reason I'm pushing on it is because this statement doesn't pass the sniff test, right?
Okay.
I mean.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask another general question, and that is, to the extent somebody has concerns, do you have a sense of the process for revealing those concerns without running afoul of federal law or policy?
Do you have a sense of the proper way to do it? Or
So
is that the question?
the new advocates you're hiring, if what's the training you're providing them to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes? So to the extent they have concerns that certain students aren't being served in the way they need to be served, what can they do? And to the extent you don't have an answer.
I have an answer. I have an answer. Because you all are tiptoeing in.
No, I mean, again, we do, without, you know,
Yeah.
again, looking forward. And this is not just
There-
a concern for your office.
There's practices and there's training. We've had the news bureau over to talk to our team on a regular basis. I mean, so that's a historic practice that has been and will continue to be. There's always, anytime you have any general concerns, there's always the practice of always consulting supervisors and leadership in the department, consulting other colleagues that may have experience in the space. But there's always going to be, there always has been and always will be training regarding best practices in dealing with complaints. So that has always been and always will be. We'll continue to do it. We'll enhance, we'll add things to it. But that's just a normal practice for the team.
Okay, thank you.
I
Tina
would-
had a question.
Yeah, I do want to piggyback on that and say that I would echo that I think a policy is a really good idea there. We've seen lots of interviews in the media where the RSVP Center people have been quoted, and I've talked to the media, and it's not clear what policy relates to when they can talk and what they can't say. And so I think rather than sending a message that they should not be talking about our processes at all, I think having it very clear what the expectations and guidelines for are pretty important. And I want to, and I'm sorry, because I know, we know each other, we sit on a lot of the same things, and I feel a little bad that you're sitting here taking all the heat for decisions that were made, probably by many people, but that my perspective as someone who studies violence, who studies advocacy services and safety planning, that I think that the RSVP Center is a real gem on this campus. And, when we have tremendous numbers of students that are impacted by sexual and interpersonal violence. It is a critical resource on our campus, right? And I just want to push back a little on the notion that, because this is the area of my concern, okay? We had 4 staff and a graduate student, and that included a full-time advocate and then a person who is also a trained advocate who could back that person up. And then we went down to 2 staff who were not trained advocates and a graduate student. And as the newspaper has reported, we didn't have a victim advocate, like a truly dedicated person from May to September, so that included the busiest time of the year for RSVP. And the staff that were there, the 2, so our staff is cut by half, they had other obligations, right, in terms of prevention programming and grants they were funded on. So I just want to push back on this idea that services were not impacted. I think that perhaps it's how it had to be, you know, perhaps everyone did the best that they could under difficult circumstances, but I do think it's concerning. And I have heard concerns from students about this, and so I think it's critically important that we talk about policies and processes so that kind of service problem doesn't happen again, because these are really important to our students and to faculty and staff who also access those services, particularly over the summer hours. And the other thing that I wanted to encourage was, you mentioned an advisory board coming together. I'm a member of that advisory board. I was asked to join it last year. It's never met, to my knowledge, and perhaps if there was a failed search, there was difficulty finding people, it would have made sense to call on your advisory board and say, hey, we can't find people, we've been advertising, can you help us get the word out, can you help us problem solve? So that we don't, you know, moving forward, we don't have to have these kind of gaps again. So that's just my concern. It's not a question, I just made a speech at you, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was waiting for the question. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this sort of approach in a different direction. And so what's been unclear in what's been reported, what we've heard today, is who is the person or persons with the responsibility to hire and terminate individuals in those positions? What's the role at the level of that particular unit? What's the role of human resources in that process? And in the way that the statement was written, what was the role of General Counsel's office in regards to this process? So who has the power to hire and fire in regards to this position? What role did HR have in this process? And what role did General Counsel's office have in this process?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk in specific details, but I could talk to you about how the process works. So the org chart, I'll talk about the org chart. I'll address that. The org chart is for the Department of Social Justice. Laura is actually she's the associate director, but I'm the point person for the Department of Social Justice. I'm an assistant vice chancellor, inclusion, diversity, and equity, and the areas of supervision I have are all the social justice areas. So if you look at the org chart for the space, we me, then Laura, and then each coordinator actually oversees the different spaces. Well, me and Laura tag team, but I think I would say for the most part, for most of the decisions, it's usually again, I trust Laura's counsel, but a lot of the decisions, the hiring process, we're usually hand in hand, but ultimately I would probably say it's my decision to hire and fire, I would say, but Laura has input, but I would say I would be probably the point person if that's what you're asking. HR, I think anytime when you hire a person at the University of Missouri, HR is going to be involved in the process. I mean, so that's part of just the regular process of hiring students. Hiring individuals, you can't hire anybody without going through an HR process. We have an HR rep that we actually funnel everything through, so HR is going to be involved in any hiring process at the university.
And so I guess the portion that was written in the statement regarding illegalities, that would bring into General Counsel's office also. Is routine in this type of thing when you have a statement that there were laws that were broken? I mean, that's in the statement, right, Ann? I mean, you
Yeah,
have
it
the
says
statement.
violations of university policies and federal laws.
Yeah.
So federal laws,
Yeah.
I mean, anytime.
But again, like I said from the beginning, I'm not gonna talk about, the details of the case. I could talk about the center, I could talk about where we're going. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna refer everybody, again, I told you all gonna be upset and angry with me. I'm gonna refer everybody back to the statement. I know I'm not gonna be popular, but that's the reality. Again, I want you all to trust that, again, I've worked with a lot of you on different committees before, and if I haven't, I think you all should just check and see my work history. Decisions are not made in vacuums. There's things, again, I'm going to refer back to the statement. I know that's not going to make people happy. But again, my philosophy has always been continue to show up, continue to work, continue to produce. I'm going to continue to do that. But again, I'm going to refer back to the statement. But I can talk to you about the general practice of hiring people at the institution. Yes, there's a point person. The structural piece, again, I would be the point person in those cases. I'm going to always work with HR in decision making with hiring employees at the university.